Getting some more breaking news on the FBI investigation of Brett Kavanaugh. Let's go right to our congressional correspondent, Phil Mattingly. He's up on Capitol Hill. Phil, Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee, they just sent a new letter. Tell us about that.
Yeah, just to give you a sense of how heated things have gotten on Capitol Hill and really the divide between Republicans and Democrats. Democrats, at least 8 Democrats on the Judiciary Committee, now seizing on a tweet from the Republican staff of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which said in the tweet that in previous background checks from Brett Kavanaugh, he's had 6 through his time in government service, that there had been, quote, no whiff of sexual impropriety or alcohol allegations. What those Democrats said in response in a letter to Chairman Chuck Grassley said today was this: each of us has reviewed the confidential background investigation of Judge Kavanaugh before the hearing. While we are limited in what we can say about this background investigation in a public setting, we are compelled to state for the record that there is information in the second post that is not accurate. The second post being the tweet about no whiff of allegations. We urge you to ensure these Twitter posts are promptly corrected. Now, it's cryptic, and they're not going to go further into details because background investigations material is not for public release. It can only be read by senators and a small number of staff in camera. So what do they actually mean by that? That we don't know. Now, Senator Grassley's staff has responded just a short minute ago on Twitter saying, quote, nothing in the tweet is inaccurate or misleading. The committee stands by its statement, which is completely truthful. More baseless innuendo and more false smears from Senate Democrats. So, Wolf, it's been no secret that the Democratic staff and Republican staff, the Democratic members and Republican members of the Judiciary Committee have really kind of been part of an implosion over the course of the last couple of weeks as it relates to this investigation. We've seen letters going back and forth. We've seen what appears to be opposition research going back and forth throughout the course of people reviewing these allegations. That clearly not only continuing, but kind of reaching a new level. And it also raises another issue. Wolf, what the committee is expecting to get back, what the Senate is expecting to get back from the FBI is a supplemental background investigation. What that entails is similar to what they're going back and forth cryptically on right now. It is information that can only be reviewed by 100 senators and 8 declared staff members. That means because it can't be released publicly, and my understanding is there will be no release, no summary, nothing public related to what they get back, related to the FBI's recent inquiry into Judge Kavanaugh, it will likely only be known as it is characterized by senators, which opens the door to cryptic back and forths like this and only adds to the confusion as people are trying to decide whether or not to elevate Brett Kavanaugh to the highest court in the land. Look, the partisan back and forth and the heated partisan debate over this is no secret, but the way this has kind of devolved over the course of the last couple of weeks just underscores, one, the stakes, obviously with this position, obviously with the allegations and the moment that they're in as a country, but also the divide inside the committee, the divide between the parties, as this seems to have just gotten more and more heated every step of the way. And what people don't have are answers to whether the allegations are true, to who might be right, and frankly, how people are going to vote, and if Brett Kavanaugh is going to have the votes to be confirmed. Wolf?
What do you know, Phil, about the timing on the releasing of this FBI report?
Yeah, Wolf, just a short while ago, I spoke to a senior Senate aide who said basically everything is frozen right now. The Senate needs to move forward if it wants to have a vote this week, as Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has said throughout the week will actually happen, kind of basically doing something procedural on the floor to start the clock on that. But they have decided not to move forward until the FBI gets the report to Capitol Hill. Now, the process here is once the FBI is finished doing all of its interviews as part of its inquiry, it will send that package of interviews up to the White House, who will then, probably within the course of an hour or two, send it to Capitol Hill. When it reaches Capitol Hill, it will be a single document, numbers of pages, but a single document that senators will be able to go into a room to read. Obviously, as I said earlier, they won't be able to bring most of their staff. Only 8 total staffers, 4 on each side, will be able to have access to it. If they bring in notes, they are not allowed to take them out of the room. They are not allowed to take their phones into the room. But in terms of what the vote timing is, while Leader McConnell has made clear they want to do it this week, so far, that process has not started, and I'm told that process will not start, Wolf, until that FBI report makes its way to Capitol Hill.
We'll see when it arrives at the White House and then when it arrives up on Capitol Hill. Phil, thank you very much. Phil Mattingly reporting. Joining us now, Senator Richard Blumenthal. He's a Democrat. He serves on the Judiciary Committee. Senator, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you, Wolf.
I'm hoping you can clarify this latest issue. The Republican majority on your committee, the Judiciary Committee, they posted this tweet. Nowhere in any of these 6 FBI reports, which the committee has reviewed on a bipartisan basis, was there ever a whiff of any issue at all related in any way to inappropriate sexual behavior or alcohol abuse. What is inaccurate about that tweet?
The clarification, that tweet would require me to go into the FBI report, but what that tweet highlights very dramatically and directly is the need for a full investigation and for the public to know what's in that investigation, which is why it should be made public and why the facts here are really so important. We ought to have a common goal here of all of the witnesses, including the 25 on the list that we submitted to the FBI and to the White House, we as the Democratic members, most of us, and those witnesses still have not been interviewed. I'm told that there are 40 more witnesses who have relevant information still not interviewed.
But you heard Senator Chuck Grassley, the committee chairman, say that tweet is absolutely accurate, nothing inaccurate about it. As you know, there were 6 previous FBI background checks of Judge Kavanaugh. So you got to tell us, what exactly are you suggesting is inaccurate? Was there ever any raising of the issue of alcohol or sexual assault, anything along those lines in the previous 6 background checks?
Here's what I can tell you about those 6 background checks. I've seen them. And talking generally, without going into what is in them, the general practice of the FBI is, number one, to begin the FBI background check at age 18. So nothing before age 18 generally is covered. Second, the general practice is to go to professional colleagues, co-workers, supervisors, people involved in those kinds of formal relationships, and then individuals who are submitted as references by the nominee himself. So you know from that general practice that pointing to lack of information about alcohol abuse or sexual contacts or experience might never be covered by those 6 background investigations, because as a general practice, the FBI would not go back earlier than 18 or cover those kinds of friendships that might give rise to that information.
Because in this letter that you wrote together with 7 of your Democratic colleagues on the Judiciary Committee, you write, while we are limited in what we can say about this background investigation in a public setting, we are compelled to state for the record that there is information in the second post, the post by the Judiciary Committee, the majority, that is not accurate. So why didn't you raise these issues earlier, the concerns that you apparently have right now about the previous 6 background checks and what was included in those background checks?
We did raise them earlier. In fact, from day one, we asked for an FBI investigation. Just last weekend, I led a letter that was released on Monday asking for specific witnesses to be interviewed who would not have been covered in the previous background check investigation. The FBI has time or should demand time to make this investigation complete.
But in all the interviews that you and I have done, your Democratic colleagues have done with us, I don't remember anyone raising, suggesting that perhaps there were previous allegations of alcohol or sexual misconduct in the earlier background checks of Judge Kavanaugh.
Well, we are constrained as to what we can say in public about those background checks. They are generally not released, available only to committee members. My feeling is that this next one has to be released publicly.
But you and your colleagues have written this letter now. All of a sudden, this may or may not be a significant moment. You had a chance to meet privately with Judge Kavanaugh, right?
I had an opportunity. I did not do so because I wanted his answers to me to be in the public under oath.
But do you know if any of your colleagues who met with him behind closed doors raised this issue?
I don't know whether my colleagues did, but they are pertinent and relevant now. And before we make this decision about a lifetime appointment on the nation's highest court, where literally generations in the future may be affected by his decisions as a swing vote on reproductive rights or workers' rights or the environmental rights and health care, which is a major issue, health care may be determined by his vote, we ought to have the full story.
Because you know that your Republican colleagues, the president, others, supporters of Judge Kavanaugh, are going to suggest that what you're doing now smacks of desperation.
You know, what's important here, Wolf, really is the facts. We have an interest as a United States Senate to uncover all of the facts, to give the FBI the time that it needs as well as the authority and the resources to uncover all those facts whenever it may be. And the person who is responsible for this FBI investigation, Jeff Flake, correctly and courageously asked for a fair, full investigation, ought to join us, I think, in asking for all the facts.